Guys, we got a lot to cover today. We have a special guest. Jeff Root's going to be here. He is the owner and founder of Digital BGA. Basically, the only company out there that is what I consider to be our competition. And he's going to talk about that SBL, and we're going to talk about this later, but he's actually not really our competition anymore. We fixed that. So he's going to go over this SBLI product that I've been talking about for a couple of weeks. I know a lot of you guys have finally been appointed with them and are ready to write them. So it's going to be excited to see who writes them this week. We've got Brandon Novick coming on. He's going to talk a little bit about risk aversion theory, which is very important as to how we perceive things, agents that are investing into their business, the importance of scaling, increasing your budget. We're going to discuss a little bit about the law of large numbers and how it affects us in our industry. And we did something very special this past January. We did hit an agency record. We actually had another record that got broken last Thursday. We'll talk about that in a moment. But I do want to recognize some agents for hitting milestones. You're looking at this top 10 from January. We literally only had 14 agents on the platform full time. So for all 4 weeks of January. That's not normal. What you're looking at is basically a top 10 that you would see from an agency that maybe has 100 plus agents. So what we're doing is very unique, guys. And that's why I'm so proud of the way that our agency has grown and changed just over the past few months. So I do want to recognize Patty. Congratulations. Her first month on the platform, and she goes ahead and breaks the 20K in a month, her very first month. Congratulations, Patty. Very cool. I do want to recognize a few other agents. Patrick H., he wrote that 27K. This was his best month. And I think it may not be the first time that he's broken 20K, but a few of these agents came on board with us right around the holidays. So, we weren't working the system full time, in November or December, really just because of those holidays. Patrick, congratulations on breaking 20K last month. Chris P, same thing. Now I know he's broken 20K a couple of times, but I feel like he needs to be recognized. So good job on what you're doing, buddy. Keep it up. And also Jason M, same thing. He's been with us for months, and I don't think I've ever actually recognized him for breaking that 20K, even though I'm pretty confident he's done it multiple times. Now, with that being said, there is another milestone that I would like to recognize, another agent. First time writing over 30K in a month. That would be Steve DaCosta. Congratulations, man. Excellent job. Keep up the good work. Keep doing what you're doing. I'm loving it, man. I really am. Very nice. And as I mentioned, last week, one agent decided that he was going to go ahead and break an agency record. And Chris T, of course, wrote 9 applications, 9 sales in a single day last Thursday. His AP was right at 7,000. It's funny because Chris normally writes around 10K plus per week. And he was having a terrible week, and he just turned on the boosters and really just 9 sales in a single day. That's pretty crazy, but that just goes to show you guys what can be done on a platform like ours. Very, very cool, very unique. I'm going to introduce Jeff Root, and we're going to ask him a little bit about the SBLI product. And there are a couple of things I want to mention. First of all, Jeff Root, literally, those of you who don't know who he is, he literally wrote the book on selling life insurance remotely. And yes, when the book first came out, I did buy it. I did read it about 7-8 years ago. I know Jeff, he is the first agency that actually had access to this SBLI product. And it's only been out for a few months. So we're gonna ask him some questions. Guys, those of you on the call, if you have any questions to ask Jeff once he comes on, feel free to raise your hand and fire away about the product. Let me just say, there's 4 things that I know about SBLI, their final expense product, and that I like. The first is they do pay weekly. They pay every Monday for the sales you made the week before, excuse me. They do take debit cards and direct express cards as a payment. They will accept that from the clients. As we all know, most companies will not do that. And their underwriting they only do a script check. So they don't do the MIB and the script check, which equals to a higher approval rate. To me, that the common sense is there. There's a fourth thing that I want to talk about, the Sequoia Funeral Concierge Plan. So what SBLI has done is they've decided to put out something that a couple of companies that you guys know, like Lincoln Heritage and Senior Life, do this. So Lincoln Heritage and Senior Life have something similar to this. And part of their presentation, part of their pitch is, hey, we'll help to take care of your funeral for your family so they don't have to deal with it. That's how companies like that actually justify their high cost, their overpriced insurance. The beautiful thing about SBLI is they're competitive. Their prices, you're going to see a lot of times, they're right next to Mutual of Omaha. And when you add in this Sequoia Funeral Concierge Plan, to me, that's one more thing that you can talk to the client about, especially when you're doing your loop, when you're doing your straight line selling and the client says, well, I got to think about it. Well, Janet, let me give you something else to think about it. We're going to help you with your funeral, and you can get into this brochure and how it works. Very cool. So, and those of you who are new, I know we may have one agent on the call who's brand new to the agency and brand new to the industry. What we do, we have access to a lot of top carriers, and we like to use like the benefits of those carriers when we're selling them to build rapport and to actually build value in the product. So like a good example I'll use, SBLI, they have the Sequoia Funeral Concierge Plan. Royal Neighbors is a company that was basically founded by women for women. So when I'm presenting Royal Neighbors to a female, I'll talk about that. I'll talk about the benefits. Companies like Royal Neighbors, what they do. I know we had a hurricane that blew through here last year and actually did a lot of water damage. And some of the people that had Royal Neighbors actually did receive money for food that went bad in the refrigerator. I love the idea of the SBLI having this Sequoia Funeral Concierge Plan. With that being said, Jeff Root, if you could please unmute yourself, and I've got a few questions to ask.
Sure.
Excellent.
Shoot, go for it.
Beautiful. Good morning, and thanks for coming on. I really appreciate you sharing some information with the agents. You and I have talked how you've made the change. I believe you were leading with American Amicable, and now you guys are leading with this SBLI product. Can you give me a couple of reasons for that?
Yeah. So, we have a few call centers, brick and mortar, and, we do a lot of remote sales as well. And, when we built this product, it was to make something different, but to make it very telesales friendly, right? And so when we got this product, we're like, okay, we know we're going to put it in our call centers because we built it, right? But we don't know how independent agents are going to react to it because they can sell whoever they want. And AMM was for the past year and a half, has been our go-to carrier. So agents really picked up SBLI, and it's overtaken AMM by a long shot. And it's mostly because we're just pushing more cases through. So you mentioned, Doug, that there's no MIB check. So what SBLI does is they do a Milliman check, right? So it's Milliman, and that's it. And they determine a risk score based off the Milliman. And it's more of a holistic view of underwriting. So, you're not going to see an underwriting guide or an RX guide or anything like that. You just have to look at the application. If you can answer no to all the questions, whether it's for preferred, standard, or graded, or whatever, you can answer no to those sections, 90% of the time you're going to get an approval. We're seeing 90% approval rates on this. So that's why we're writing it. It's just because, we're seeing cases where, just an example, you have and I'll go into underwriting issues in a little bit, but where it kind of took off for our agents was seeing, they used to take our COPD cases to Aetna, for example. Those would get declined. I know there's others that do it too, but that was kind of the go-to before. Those would get declined, and they put it with SBLI, instant approval, right? And after a few of those kind of swirling around the agency, agents, really took on to this SBLI product. So that's a big reason we're just getting a lot more issued.
Gotcha. The word gets out and everybody wants to do it. And guys, by the way, 90% approval rates is not normal. That's out there. Approval process. Let's talk a little bit about that. One of the things to me that's important is I like to know as soon as possible when the client's approved. So I guess the bottom line is, will the agent and the client know if they're approved as applied for or not before they actually hang up the phone, on that one call close.
Yes, absolutely. And, if you want, I'm going to share my screen real quick here.
Yep.
But yes, the answer is yes, you will get an approval. I'm just going to show you the voice signature process real quick. What happens is it's an MRS application. You can log in through SBLI site or just through MRS directly. And when you start the application, you get the basic info, owner, insured, all that stuff. Then you do a quick disclosures and voice signature, right? So you do that, then you have to do it's going to ask you this, and is this e-app being completed over the phone or in person? You go over the phone and you click voice signature. You can also do DocuSign for an instant decision, right? And so, once you do that, you transfer it to MRS. You call into MRS, the phone number's on the app there, and it takes it's about a 7-minute process. They're not asking, any sort of information on the health details. They're just reading disclosures. They're going to send a link via text or email, and they're going to confirm that the applicant received that. Okay. So what we do, just a little hack, and I'll give you guys that link, is we send the link prior to, so they can say that they received it, because it sometimes takes a minute or so before the applicant actually receives it. So that's one way to kind of speed it up. But once they confirm that, they agree to voice signatures. That's it. They hang up, takes about 7 minutes. And so once it's completed, the status will be set to pending submission. Then you go back into MRS and you proceed to do the medical questions, finish the application. You get an instant decision right there. And this is kind of what it looks like. You'll see right here in this green box. And you finish the application. You get that decision, and then you take the payment information. You don't even ask for payment information until you get a decision first. So you're not asking that first. So that's a huge thing to the process that we really loved about SBLI.
That's funny. I was going to ask you about the signature processes. So you got two different options. Are you guys going to be doing anything else with the signature option, or is it basically, or is this it? We got these two options.
Yeah. So you have the DocuSign, and in about, I want to say it's in testing right now with MRS, but I guess I have a question for you, Doug. Do you guys have the ability? Are you guys recording all your calls?
We are.
Okay, then you guys will get this access where you can just read the disclosures, and you don't have to transfer to MRS as long as you keep that recording, right? You won't have to upload it or anywhere. They may do some spot checks here and there, so you want to keep that that recording handy, because they will do some spot checks every once in a while. But you won't even have to do that MRS thing. It'll be almost like AMAM, except you don't have to call into somewhere. You just read the disclosures on your recorded line that you personally have. And so what happens is there's going to be a code where that says voice signature DocuSign. It's going to be call center. You click call center, and then you're going to have to put in a code, and you guys will have access to that code that will give you to do that. So it'll be a really smooth process very soon once that goes out of testing.
Excellent. Excellent. I like that. So, and guys, FYI, earlier I mentioned that Digital BGA is no longer our competitor. They're our partner now. So we've partnered with them so we can eliminate the competition and not have to deal with that anymore. And there's some benefits that you guys are going to get from this relationship that that no one else has. And we'll get into this in a few minutes. I see a couple of you guys are raising your hand. Patty, you got a question?
Good morning. Just before I go, how's the persistency rate with this SBLI?
Persistency. So, it's only been on the market for a few months, so we don't have much data on it. All we can look at are approvals, issues and issued rates and things like that. So it's really too soon to tell on persistency, but it has Social Security billing. So, and I'll go into that in a second as well. So it should be good, especially if if you're selling the funeral concierge, the Sequoia, which I can also help you guys with here. That's really going to help your persistency, and I'll explain why in a moment here. But the persistency should be really good with this product.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Patty. Let's see who else had their hand. Christopher.
Good morning. I had a couple of questions. Instead of doing the voice authorization, how easy is the DocuSign process? Because I'm already doing a lot of that through Mutual. Is it a pretty easy process?
It's super easy. So the DocuSign is an option in MRS, and if you have an email address, it's a super simple process. It's instant decision as soon as you get the signature. In fact, that's the fastest process if you have an email. is to do the DocuSign.
As far as mailing out the policy, some carriers mail out the policy after the first payment. Some do it upon approval. How is your process?
Yeah, so one thing is right now it's an e-policy only, but in the next 30 days, they will start mailing the policies. This was built as a telesales product, and they assumed, I didn't know this, but they assumed that it would be e-policy delivery, and they can, I guess they wanted to save on those costs, but we told them, no, these need to get mailed out. So they're building out that process in the next 30 days. It will be mailed on issue. And that should happen, like I said, in the next 30 days or so. But
Okay, so
go
it'll be mailed on issue, but they'll also receive it electronically as approval as well.
Right, the agent will receive it electronically immediately. So once the approval goes through, you see a policy populate right there, and you could send it to them via email if you wanted to right there.
Okay, and then you do take credit cards, debit cards, Direct Express. Is that paid as earned or advanced?
That's as earned. And there's also a $3.95 charge on top of that. So take the rates that you see, add $3.95, and that's it's the cost of doing business that way, I guess.
And I will say, I used to be with Lincoln Heritage. The concierge service was a huge selling point for anybody I was talking to, even if they had life insurance. That's great. I'm glad you already have life insurance. But do you have the service that'll take care of all of your funeral arrangements? That way your family can deal with the loss and not have to deal with the funeral. And it was a big selling point for even people who had insurance already.
It's huge. I talk to Lincoln Heritage people all the time, and correct me if I'm wrong, Christopher, but that was pretty much half the presentation was selling on the concierge service, from what I understand.
That was mainly the only thing you sell, because the prices weren't competitive, but it doesn't matter because we're going to take care of all the arrangements, so you don't have to worry.
Good stuff. Thanks, Chris. Brandon.
Yeah, so two things really quickly. So first off, I wanted to confirm, you said that the e-app process was the quickest way to get an approval, right? Quickest decision. Okay. And then the second piece was, now we've said DocuSign. I saw DocuSign mentioned. Is it the official brand DocuSign, or is it an off-brand DocuSign?
It's the official brand DocuSign. So MRS, I guess I don't know what the proper term is. They might iframe it into their software, but it is DocuSign. Yeah.
Okay, so it's integrated into their own software, but then it is DocuSign. So perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Good stuff. And Chris, I want to mention, because I know you do like to write Mutual of Omaha, and there's a couple agents that like to write them more than I recommend. We'll put it that way. But the nice thing about having this relationship with Digital BGA is that they have a signature process that they use for a couple of carriers, a couple of products, I should say, but one of them is that Mutual of Omaha product. So now, instead of having to do the e-signature, there's another option that's going to be available. Jeff, can you share that with us?
Sure. Yeah. So for Mutual of Omaha specifically, we have text to sign with them. We built out a process, got it approved and through compliance to text to sign. So it's just you go through. We'll get you guys set up on this app to do it. It's not instant. It's not instant decision though, like going through their iGo. So that will be, but if you're doing DocuSign, you're probably not getting instant decision anyway. It's the same thing. We built out our own DocuSign basically and got it through compliance at Mutual of Omaha and a couple other carriers. So we have text to sign with Mutual of Omaha. You guys will get access to pretty soon here.
Awesome. Nice. Is it like a security question? How does that process work?
No, it's a code. So, once you click submit, you get it's like a 7-digit code, and you give it to the person receives a text. They click on the link, they put in that 7-digit code, and and then they tap their screen a couple times, where they're supposed to, and then it adds their signature.
A couple of quick questions about the product.
Sure.
How far out, let's see if you know this, how far out can you actually set up that first draft?
Yeah, so one of the nuances with SBLI is you can only have immediate draft or one of the Social Security billing dates. You can't pick a date in the future. It has to be Social Security billing date or today when the policy was issued, right? So, I guess it depends on the day of the month and how far that is. One of those Social Security billing days
Right.
are, so that's,
Gotcha.
that's something that, we've had some complaints about from agents, but that's just how they structured it. Yeah, I'll give you some history. So SBLI was primarily term and whole, like when I say whole life, not final expense, but whole life insurance, right? So that's primarily their market. So these billing structures that they have weren't really made for the senior market. We're trying to get them to it. And I'm sure they'll fix it at some point, as the product matures a bit. So, but that's how they have it currently.
Do you know the chargeback rule and how it works, and the whole, if you could explain that to us, that'd be great.
The first 3 months, if a policy lapses in the first 3 months, so this is something that, again, agents really don't like, is there's 100% chargeback in the first 3 months on lapse, not on death, on lapse, right? And then it's as earned after that. But if a policy is taken the first, if it successfully drafts the first month, it's a high probability it's going to draft the next couple of months.
Okay. Yeah. And that's what I kind of wanted to hear about, because I know that's the same thing, I believe, exact same thing that Prosperity does. I'm not sure who else does that, but I know some companies have these little, they want to see the clients on the books for at least a few months. Otherwise you're going to have to give back that first couple of months. You're going to have to give it all back. So I get that. Guys, does anybody else have any other questions before Jeff continues? If Jeff, and I know you mentioned a couple of things you wanted to share with us. So with that,
yeah, if nobody has any questions, I wanted to share a little bit on how we're selling the product using Sequoia, how we're getting referrals from it and whatnot. So if you wouldn't, let me just share that real quick. I'm going to share my screen one more time. Included with every policy is Sequoia Concierge, right? Making this final expense product the most value packed product on the market for the price when you factor in pricing, right? You talked about Lincoln Heritage, I think, before with Christopher and the Funeral Consumer Guardian Society, right? That's this right here, FCGS. That's what they sell on, right? This comes with Sequoia. It has all this other stuff built into it. Like when I say it's one of the best, it is the best funeral concierge plan out there. It really is. So a little background on them. So they're new to the US market, but they've been around for 32 years as Nasser Global in the Latin markets. This is really big in Latin America, these funeral concierge plans, not burial insurance, not final expense insurance, but these funeral concierge plans is what people buy out there. And so somebody found it, brought it over to the States, and that's, and now it's coming to market here really with SBLI. And and you're going to see it a lot, I think, after SBLI as well. So you have Lincoln Heritage, and you also have, Senior Life. They have Legacy Assurance, right? And so Legacy Assurance, they charge $4 a month for this, right? $4 a month. And if an agent doesn't add Legacy Assurance, they're paid less commission because they know the persistency is better with Legacy Assurance. So, I know there's a lot of benefits with policies people don't touch on, but I think this is really something that as telesales agents, we can really do to build up, persistency and build value in this. So one of the things, you can add up to 9 family or friends for free. When you do that, first of all, none of these programs has that, right? You can add anybody, any family and friends. They can be international, it could be whatever, right? And when you get those 9 family and friends, or however many you want to put on the policy or on this certificate, I should say, you're going to contact them to let them know they have these benefits, right? And do you think the SBLI policyholder is going to lapse that policy when he told 9 of his family members and friends that they all have this service, right? It's going to be hard for it's going to be hard for him to not make that payment because all his friends and family know they're doing that. He's doing that for them, right? So that's how it affects your persistency, guys. It's not just, it's selling on the service here, but you also get these referrals because you can add these to the policy, to the certificate for this, right? And so now you have these, you contact them to let them know about this and you get to know them and see what their situation is, okay? That's how we're really using this to build on our business, right? And it's included. It's not extra like with, Legacy is $4 a month. Everest is one that it's new to the market, but they're with custom products like Mutual of Omaha. They're trying to integrate with those types of products. But guys, this is one. I mean, this is something that we use to get an emotional tie down in our script. And if you guys want me to go into that, I'm happy to go into what we say to get that.
Go into that.
Anybody's interested. Okay.
Please. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's 2 additions we added to our script, right? So we ask, have you ever had to arrange a funeral? I don't know if you guys asked that question in your script or not. It's something that we do. But we added this question right here. If there was a way to get everything you paid for and all the arrangements handled, would that make you feel better? Right? Because you just hit them with, have you ever had an arrangement in a funeral? If it's a yes or no, you already know how to respond in your script. But we add that, okay? And then right before we know we're going to offer SBLI, after the pre-qualification, everything, we put in this paragraph right here. All of our call centers are saying this word for word. And we say, your policy will come with Sequoia concierge to take the emotional burden off your family. When you pass, your family has a phone number to call 24 hours a day that will take care of everything and answer any questions. They will be assigned a personal advocate to help with arrangements according to your family's budget. They'll take care of everything for you and find you the lowest cost of all the services in your area, saving typically 20 to 40%. So your family doesn't have to, and give you the true peace of mind. They take away all the stresses, and the best part, you can add 9 other family members to your plan at no cost. Then you go into your rates. So we add that. We have our call centers add that. Not our independent agents. Some do, some don't. But that is a way that we do it. But you can really get the emotional tie down with, if there was a way to get everything paid for and all the arrangements handled, would that make you feel better? Then you hit them with what this does for you. So that's how we're doing it.
Nice.
That's how we're explaining it.
Patty, did you have anything else you wanted to ask?
Yeah,
Pat?
real quick. So when you say you can add up to 9 members, family or friends, you mean 9 other people, whether it doesn't matter how old they are, they can have this benefit at no charge. They could be 20 years old, for example.
They could be 2 years old. They could be living in Panama. It could be anybody.
Okay. Anybody in the world, as long as they're tied to
Anybody in the world. Yep.
Nice.
Oh, what has the response been from the people when they hear this? When they hear this benefit, added benefit?
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. Our agents in our call centers, we forced to say this, right? We forced to say these things. They make salary, right? We're paying them a salary plus commission, right? When we force them to say it, the response has been great, right? So we haven't had much of a response from independent agents because they don't give us much feedback. But in this, it's really helped. So I'm going to say the response has been really good. But the thing is, you have to put some focus on this. You have to really talk about it. If you just talk about it kind of in stride, and you kind of glaze over it. Oh, you also have these benefits. But if you really get that, ask those hard-hitting questions, having those arrangements taken care of for you type, and how would that make you feel, right? Get them to talk about their feelings about not having that stress. That's where you really get the emotional buy-in from them.
Oh yeah. To me, this is it. This is a bomb. That's how
Yeah, and soon there's going to be apps where you can sell this like Legacy Assured, so you can attach this to any policy. It'll probably be like $3 a month is what I'm hearing, $3 or $4 a month. So same thing, but but this is included in the premiums of the SBLI
Nice.
policy.
Thank you, Patty. Jim?
Hey, Jeff, can you hear me?
Yep, loud and clear.
Hey, Jeff. So I wrote 2 last week. I didn't know anything about the e-delivery only. Now, you said they're going to switch over. Are they going to mail out the policies that were e-delivered as well?
No, they're not. They're not. So it's going to be a question on the MRS application if you'd like the policy to be mailed.
Okay, so they automatically email that, or do I have to do it?
So they automatically email it, but we're telling agents to download it and email it to them with your contact information, everything, because when they email it, they make you log in, set up an account, do all these things to download your policy. And so I would just email it to them as a PDF so they have it. They don't have to do any of that stuff, and get your name back in front of them as well.
Okay, I'm going to send something out to them anyway, so I might just print it out and send it as well.
That's what a lot of our agents are doing. A lot of our agents, independent agents, send welcome packets, and so they print it out right away with their cover page and mail it out. So they prefer it that way so that they can brand themselves.
That makes sense. All right,
So
thanks,
Jim,
man.
Jim, while you're
Yeah.
on, I believe you're our only agent that's actually written the product. What was your experience? How did it go?
It went well. The first one was a little, worrisome because it's just new, but the interface looks just like Liberty Banker's Life. I'm sure they use the same thing. The only hiccup I had on both times was when they read the fraud statement to them, they ask them if the agent read the fraud statement, which they just read to them. And one of my people got really confused. Is like, what about fraud? What about fraud? So now from now on, I'm going to let them know ahead of time that they're going to read you this fraud statement. They ask you, did the agent read it? Do you have you had any issues with that, Jeff?
Nobody's really brought that to our attention, honestly. It almost seems like I haven't heard any rumblings about that. So
Okay, I'm gonna
actually
go back and listen to my recording, see exactly what happened. But it's kind of weird because I always mute
Yeah.
my mic when they're going through all that stuff, anyways, and just start doing other stuff. But I looked up, and when I heard that, I was like, uh-oh. You know, any kind of hiccup you have during the authorization is kind of weird. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's nice they do the voice signature and they do the authorization, and then it's pretty much done after that. You know, just enter the bank
Yep.
information. But it went
Nice.
well.
So
From the
guys,
sound of it, it sounds like that DocuSign process would completely circumvent that issue you ran into.
Right, right.
so guys,
Yeah.
if you're gonna, if you're gonna use that form, that signature, just keep in mind, to prep your client. Let them know, hey, this is what's gonna happen. That way they are prepared and they're not surprised with anything that they're asked. Pretty simple.
I have a question for Jeff real quick. So do you find your call center agents or whoever, they find the voice signature is more preferred versus, DocuSign or e-sign?
Yeah, there's creatures of habit. They go voice sign it every single time because they don't really need to get an email. To me, I think they do that so they don't have to press for an email, but they go for voice sign every time.
Well, just a little comment for my experience, since all our leads are coming from Facebook, we feel like even though they're older, they're more like they know enough to e-sign. And so far I haven't had any problem with them e-signing. I mean, they just stumble a little here and there, but if I be quiet, just give them time, they figure it out.
Yeah.
Right, and
I mean,
that's part of our design, Patty. That's part of the way that I set all that up, is so that we could keep that smooth.
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, if you guys, that's right. You guys are all working those types of leads, so you have emails. So, I mean, if you guys go straight to the DocuSign process, you'll find it really smooth. You won't have to do much of that at all. It'll be quicker.
It makes life real easy. It does.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the one thing I'll say about our platform is that, most of these people are on the smartphone filling out the form, setting the appointment. So they know how to do everything from check their banking to you name it, just even signing documents right on their smartphone. Brandon, I wanted to go ahead and bring Brandon on, and Brandon's got some information to share with us, something that he and I were talking about. And I think it's pretty good stuff to help basically. Well, Brandon, I'll let you fire away with this.
Yeah, so what I really want to get into is kind of a thought process that I think it'd be really beneficial that we can kind of think through, and helps us, and it may sound familiar to you and what you've dealt with, you being every single agent on this platform, me, Doug, everybody. I think that it's important to kind of understand why I'm thinking the way that I'm thinking, because then it's easier to put it all together. So one of the things that we talk about on a regular basis is scaling. And we talk about scaling and we talk about buying leads, and there's a lot of anxiety around it, right? There's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of worry, there's a lot of fear in what's going to happen. And there's an actual term for this. It's been studied for hundreds of years, but you've got recent studies extensively going through it for the last 50 years. And it's called risk aversion theory. Risk aversion theory. So what it actually is it's based off of our psychology, how every single human being is built, even how every animal is built. And it's a survival mechanism. So the thing is some agents, what they'll do is they'll be very nervous about scaling by $100 or $200 per week, despite having results. And when I say despite having results, we'll have an agent that maybe they're writing $5,000 or $7,000, and that extra $100, $200 to step up to that next level, it's almost like it's terrifying. It's like you're investing, $10,000 to hit that next level. Or we've had agents that what they'll do is they'll work for a couple of weeks and then they get nervous and then they don't do that next investment. And I think it's important to think about risk aversion theory, because it's how we evaluate risk versus reward and risk versus loss. There's a big difference between risk versus loss. Loss, you're losing it no matter what. But a risk, there's the potential for gain. And we all want guarantees, but this doesn't have guarantees, right? And that is something very important, that's what's driving our thought process with this, right? Because you don't know if you spend $1,200 instead of $1,000, if you're going to make that extra amount of money. It's actually psychologically proven through studies that we put an emotional value behind everything that we do. Everything we do has an emotional value. So a cost or expenditure of $100 is equal to double the earnings of positivity. The negative $100, a loss of $100, has the same emotional impact as a general rule for human beings as earning $200. And really think about that. It makes sense, right? Think about going to a casino, right? You go to a casino, let's say you have a budget of $1,000 and you go into a casino with $1,000. And probably at the start of the night or before you go to the trip, you go, you know what? If I lose it, I lose it. That's okay. It's about the entertainment. It's about the experience. So you bring the $1,000. Let's say at the end of the night, you make money. You actually won. You got $200 off of that $1,000. Are you calling everybody that you know? Oh, hey, check this out. I went to the casino and I made $200 off of that $1,000. No, you're not bragging on it. You're like, Some people are almost ashamed to be like, yeah, all I got is $200, right? But I got the good experience, right? Now let's flip that over. Let's say if you made double, right? Let's say you made $2,000, right? You're probably calling your family. Yeah, I doubled my money. It was awesome. You're bragging on yourself for how it went, what happened, right? Because the emotional investment of $1,000 versus the emotional win of 2,000, big difference. And that really plays out with what we do, right? We need to keep that in mind as well. So whenever we're scaling, we want guarantees, but we can't provide guarantees. But if we double that money, we'll have the same emotional investment at the end, the same happiness that we have at the end. Now, I'm not going to lie to you and say that every single time that's how it pans out with scaling, because it doesn't. It doesn't happen every single time. Sometimes, and we have an agent that I'm thinking of in particular, I won't call anybody out. We've had an agent that they scaled, and then after scaling, the next week results were the same. And then they go, oh, well, you know what? I'm not scaling. I'm going right back because of the risk aversion theory. They didn't double the amount of money that they put in. So they immediately want to regress and go back. But here's the thing. When we regress and we go back, we don't present ourselves the risk and the opportunity for the additional earnings. Whenever we keep it up and we keep it consistent, that's how you end up on the top 10, on the top 5, is by increasing and keeping it consistent. Whenever we go up, down, it does a couple of things. One, psychologically, it rewards us for regressing. And that's a very bad thing. That's a very bad thing because we don't want to reward ourselves for stepping down and earning less, right? And two, our ad system, our lead generation system, the way that it's developed and the way that the advertising systems, because we're also using Google as well, they punish you. They punish you if you decrease your budget, and they punish you if you don't work for a couple of weeks, because this is based off of an algorithm, which is based off of a computer system. And let's think of this in another way. If you have an employee Not saying that all you guys are employees, because you're not employees, you're an independent agency. Do whatever you want. I don't care. Okay. You come up with your own schedule. But let's say you had an employee and that employee said, okay, well, I would like to work first 2 weeks of the month, but I'm going to take the next week off. Then I'm going to come back. Then I'm going to take 2 weeks off. Then I'm going to come back for about 3 or 4 weeks. Then I'm going to take another week off, right? Now you'd look at an employee and you'd go, hey, I don't think that's really going to work, right? I needed a full-time employee. And you're kind of like coming in, going out, coming in, going out, coming in, going out, right? Now, me and Doug, we don't care. We're flexible. I get it. Life happens. That's part of the reason that we chose this profession, is to have some flexibility. Okay. So don't think that I'm coming down saying, how dare you? I don't care. Live your life. I've got a wife and 2 children. If I have to take time off because I have to take time off, that's what it has to be. Right. We have an individual that his wife just got out of the hospital from a surgery. Thank God, thank God. It sounds like everything has gone well, and he had to take this week off, and God bless you for having the flexibility to do that. Right. But the ad systems that we have, and this is all ads out there, and lead vendors don't tell you this, but they'll make you commit to like 2 or 3 months in a row. You notice that they want you to have these long-term commitments. Well, we've been very flexible. And part of that is because the advertising systems, they go, whew, I like consistency. I like consistency is what those ad systems like. I like it when I see somebody that's going to be working every week, and then they start to scale a little bit, and then they're consistent and they're not up, down, up, down, up, down. Me, I don't care. But the ad systems look at it, and it causes a little bit of turmoil on that end. So you may have heard me where I say, hey, try to keep it consistent, try to stay consistent. It's not because of me or my feelings. It's solely because of the systems. And just keep in mind that risk aversion, okay? That risk aversion. I get it, right? I get it. But just keep that in mind. That could be a potential driver, because $100 of potential loss has the same emotional impact of $200 guaranteed earned.
Good stuff. Excellent. So the bottom line, guys, Facebook loves it when you spend more money, and their algorithms will most likely with our platform reward you. But then when you go backwards, or you deviate, or you take time off, they're going to punish you. It really is the bottom line. So that's what we've learned over time from doing this. That's good stuff, Brandon. Yeah, it's important that we make decisions, something that Brandon has said to me in the past. We want to make our decisions on the facts that we have, not on the emotions we have, because when we make any type of financial or important decision on an emotion, it usually doesn't work out the best. It usually doesn't. And so with this being said, I know a bunch of you guys a lot of agents already had to leave the call to get on the phone and make some sales. What I'm going to do is kind of continue this. I wanted to talk about the law of large numbers and how it affects us as insurance agents with the system that we use. So instead of doing that today, why don't I just do that on Thursday? We'll get into debit cards, direct express cards, and a few other things. We should have a very good training call for that. Good stuff. Great call. Jeff, if you're still here, thanks again. Brandon, same here, man. Good stuff. I hope everybody has a killer week. If you need anything, please reach out to Brandon or myself. You know where we're at. You know how to find us. Happy hunting.